Welcome back to Up the Villa. We've got a good episode for you today, joined by Earl, avfc Scout. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, very well, very well.
You've been keeping me company over the course of pre-season, and we announced on sort of X and Twitter, and I've mentioned it already, that you are now going to be a part of the Up the Villa clan. So tactical debriefs. Early's going to be joining me this season, so they're going to be bigger and better than ever. So I'm buzzing about that, and I love your work. So Villa fans, make sure you follow Earl on X. I'll put it in the description to this video as well. So you've been with me all through the summer, all through the transfer window. It only feels right that we start with the transfer window and we sort of just get your thoughts on where we're at. What do we need? Are you comfortable? Are you happy? What areas do you think we sort of need to strengthen that would make you feel sort of the most confident you could be going into the new season?
Yeah, it's been an interesting window, hasn't it? I think we started off quick, got some guys in through the door, some good guys. A bit of a quieter period, haven't we? But yeah, it seems to be picking up again of late. Yeah, I'm of the opinion of yourself and a lot of other Villa fans, probably a couple more in, maybe a couple out as well. I think the main for me is defender and a forward.
Yeah, I think that's where every Villa fan sort of looks at things. And I kind of, when we get into this situation where the whole fan base can see, clearly Monchi and Emery probably can see what we can see. They're not sat there thinking, oh no, defence is fine, striker's fine. They're probably thinking, and it's probably bubbling along. And I think as fans, we have that sort of little bit of like, we want it now. We want the defender now. We want the striker now. But it doesn't always sort of happen like that. So I've sort of done a little bit of a graphic here on the tactical pad, and it's been trimmed down slightly after the last couple of days, with Dobbin going, with Feeney going, with Kane, Kessler, Hayden going. So my question to you now is sort of, I know you've mentioned defender and striker, but if you had to look at the course of that whole squad before we get to that area where we'll have a bit more of an in-depth chat on striker and right back, is there anything there that you sort of look at and you think there could be a bit of work elsewhere, or do you see anybody else going off this current format of what we've got?
Well, I think Emery said it really in press conferences, and you can see it on screen from the squad. We are pretty deep, so we're getting to the point in the window where it is one in, one out. I think left back stands out. We don't really need three left backs, to be honest, so that it's probably an easy out there if we can get one of them moved on. And then other than that, I think it's just, how do you want to improve the first 11 really? So I think we've got the depth. So for me, it's then about improving the first 11.
Yeah, I mean, if I initially look at this now, then, so you've just mentioned left back. Do you think it's Moreno that goes?
It could be either of the two, Moreno or Dean, that we're talking about, isn't it? It's a difficult one in my head. I do honestly like them both, but we just can't keep them both. I think Moreno is probably the easier one to move on, just because of the wages situation. Obviously, Dean's on a higher wage. Are there many clubs out there that are going to be able to pay Premier League wages to take on Luke Dean? So I think Moreno might end up being the easier one to move on. But like I say, I love them both. I think Moreno was such a big part of us getting into that Conference League when he came in from January. But yeah, that's just how it is sometimes in football.
Yeah, definitely. I think moving across, I think Swinkles possibly will go on loan. Bogard has had a really good pre-season, but I think he might go on loan. And then that leaves us with like Carlos. Do you think Carlos is going?
I would think so, yeah. When we're talking about one in, one out defenders, that's probably what I'd be looking to do. I think he's a good player. I think he was quite underrated last season. Had good performances, but it's probably time to move him on as well. If we're being totally honest, the previous times we've spoken, we've talked about his contract as well. So he is entering kind of the last couple of years of his deal. That's kind of the time when the value just falls off a cliff. So yeah, I think was he 30, 31, contract running down. Probably time to look at him going somewhere. I think he could go somewhere else and do a job for someone.
Yeah, I think so too. I think teams like West Ham and Fulham are looking at him. So that shows you that there's teams out there that think he could potentially do a job for them as well. Today, we've been linked with Gertruda, who I imagine you like. Do you rate him?
Yeah, it's an interesting link. I know he's been on the radar of a lot of clubs for maybe the past couple of years now. He's not had his big move yet, but I really like him. I was speaking about him a lot on Twitter a year ago. Surprised he didn't end up moving to Leipzig or something like that. But yeah, he's a interesting link. I think he's a really good fit tactically, kind of that right back who can kind of come inside. And I wouldn't say he's a defensive right back because I think that's underselling him a bit because he got 9 goals, 5 assists last season. So yeah, he's good player. Big jump up though from the Eredivisie to the Premier League. But yeah, I think it's 24 years old he is now, so it's time for that challenge. Time to make the jump.
And I think in pre-season what we've seen is a lot of rotation, but more so with the midfield, double pivot, and the sort of the players the 4 players that play, either side of that, and the 2 strikers. I think with the defense, with Konsa sort of, not being with the squad, it's been very limited with sort of like, Pau and Swinkles or Bogard and Carlos until he got sent off, and then we don't know where he is now. But, so it's been limited with the defenders, but the stacked out forward and midfield line is probably Aston Villa's strongest area. You look at the depth now in sort of like the double pivot. You look at the depth on the left-hand side, but then you add to the fact that, say, Philogene played against Bilbao. He was on the left and the right. Ealing Jr. can play on the left and the right. McGinn can support the striker, all play on left and right. We've got Ramsey, we've got Rodgers. Rodgers can play on the left, all play supporting the striker. So there's a lot of options there for Villa. What have you been impressed with in pre-season, and what have you noticed anything like tactical or personnel? Is there anything that's really caught your eye and you've thought maybe that's something that we're going to take into the new season?
Yeah, I think pre-season on a whole, it's been difficult, I'd say. We played against some good teams, I think intentionally to get everyone up to speed. And it's just been building those relationships, like you say. I think we're starting to see that now with the pivot, especially. Tielemans and Onana have played together before, but we're starting to see that partnership coming together as well. Rodgers has been linking up with everybody, hasn't he? He's got a load of different partnerships, to be fair.
Yeah, he's just got everyone on speed dial, hasn't he? He's like,
yeah.
Where do you want the ball, and I'll flick it to you.
Yeah, I think it's coming together. It's coming together. We've started games decently, and then it's dropped off as we've made subs. But I think as we saw yesterday, especially, it is building. The passings get a lot more zippy. Those little round the corner passes, or people making runs in behind, we're actually finding them with the through balls now. I think at times it was just a little bit off through pre-season, but it's slowly getting there, slowly building up. So yeah, particularly I don't think we look that much different so far from what we've seen last season. We've had to play without a recognised striker, but that's really just because Watkins and Duran have been away, and there's been Archer at times. So we've seen Rodgers up top, but he's done all right up there. I've thought, especially when we've had like Ramsey and Bailey making runs in behind. So yeah, it's been all right, I think.
Yeah, I think it's been the way I've looked at it. It's been exactly what we've needed it to be. It's been the ability to play some young players, the ability to bed in some new players, the ability to get players back fit, back sharp, back ready for the start of the season. And what you'd hope is that I sort of said that the last two games for me are the games where you really want to start to see a step up a little bit, because you want to go into that new season, not with a bit of a springy step, but partnerships. We look good, and I imagine that the team that plays against Dortmund that starts that game probably won't be far off the lineup that plays against West Ham. So what I've done is I've put a line up here. I'm going to put it on the screen in a second of what I think the team might be, and you can give yours, and we'll go through. But one little observation I've made to start with is that I don't know whether you've spotted it, but predominantly last season, the double pivot looked like a double pivot. So we'd have the deepest line player that would be off the line of the next player, which would be Douglas Luiz. I actually feel like the double pivot seems to have got a bit closer together, and the sort of playing a little bit more side by side rather than it being a little bit more sort of like asymmetric. I don't know whether that's basically it's just because that's every time I look at the screen, they're basically like in a line. But I've just got that vibe that I think because Onana can cover a bit more ground, doesn't really have to offset himself too much. I mean, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I have that in my notes actually, so it's good that you brought that up. It does look a bit more flat, I would say. They're kind of in line rather than we used to have kind of Kamara was coming a lot shorter to pick up the ball, wasn't he? Yeah, I think it's probably something that they've been told to do, to be honest. Don't think it is a big miss with Kamara being injured and missing Douglas Luiz. Obviously, it's different players now, obviously. So I'm not sure we've got anyone who can do what Kamara did exactly. So maybe need two options in there for the centre backs to pass into. I think as well, missing Kamara, missing Douglas Luiz, Tielemans and Onana, they're gonna get better in the role, but we're losing a lot of progression there, a lot of ball progression. So I do think we're gonna have to see the fullbacks getting involved a lot more in the build-up play. I think might have been the Leipzig game and a few other games, and just in general as well. They'll put two players sitting on our double pivot and try and stop the passing, stop the play going through the pivot. So it's massively important. So that's why Matson's such an important signing as well. Geertruida would be good at this as well, where it's hard to sit on four players then rather than just a pivot. So yeah, I think something that I think we might see a bit more of.
Yeah, because I spotted that Bilbao that they had like a box, didn't they? And our two double pivot was sort of in the middle of this little square box, and it was like it was very difficult for us to find that pass. So yeah, that's
it's not just Villa as well. It's kind of the box midfield is just popular in world football nowadays, isn't it? So everyone's trying to come up with different ways to play against it. So Yeah, you've got to people are trying to find ways to stop it. You've got to then try and find ways to adapt again. So it'd be interesting to see how things change as the season goes on.
Yeah, so I've got my team. I'm going to put it on the screen now. I'll run through it, and then you can sort of tell me if you change anything. So I've gone bold to start with. I've gone bold, right? So this is my team. So I've got Martinez in goal. I've got Maatsen, Pau, Konsa, and Cash. I've gone with Maatsen. Now I know last season he didn't play Pau in the first game, did he? He went with Mings and Konsa, and he was going to ease Pau in. So maybe he goes with Digne. I'm not too sure. I think the double pivot will be Tielemans and Onana. Notice that I've put them on that same line because that's sort of made me think I need to talk about that. Bailey out wide on the right. He's going to start there. Well, I think Watkins will start. And then the next one that I was a bit unsure about is where does Rodgers and McGinn go? Because pre-season we've seen Rodgers off the striker. Yesterday we kind of saw McGinn off the striker as well. So, yeah, that's my team. What would you go with?
I'm pretty close to this 11, I'd say. I think at the minute I'm probably Dean over Maatsen.
Would you?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's.
Why would you say that? Because Dean needs to. Well, Maatsen needs to just progress more, or like within Unai Emery.
Yeah, just for continuity. I think. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Maatsen over Dean, but I think Dean had a good season, and I think it's his spot to lose. Mm-hmm. I think Maatsen's coming for a big fee. He's obviously not going to sit on the bench. I'm not saying that, but I think it's Dean's spot to lose essentially. So until he's out of form or whatever might happen, or I just think it's his spot at the minute. Rodgers and McGinn. I think away from home, I would rather have McGinn on the left. And I say that because I think I prefer him defensively than Rodgers.
Yeah.
And I think away from home, West Ham, first game of the season, there will be defending to be done. So I'd have McGinn over on the left. And Rodgers, not that McGinn isn't a good outlet, but he's tall outlet player, isn't he, as well? So if we do need to go long at times, I like having Rodgers up there in those scenarios. So that's how I'd go.
Yeah, I mean, this team does look pretty good to me. Yeah, I think right back, I think, is the area, isn't it, for me? Like, I'm not slandering Cash at all, but I do look at this team, and that's the area that I look at and think it's not as strong as I like. If Carlos was, and I was confident that Carlos was going to stay, then I think I'd go Carlos and Konsa at right back. What are your thoughts to that?
Yeah, 100% agree. Away from home, I think we'll be seeing the back three more often than not. Yeah. I don't know what's happening with Carlos. If he is ready to go and he's still here, I think away from home, back against a good side, top half team, back three is probably the way I would go. But yeah, not to slander Cash as well, like you say, but if your weak link is your right back, that's not the worst thing in the world, is it? It's probably it's probably a position to be like, I can live with that.
Yeah, definitely not. And like you say, it's not slander, but I think it's just kind of like what I'm feeling inside of me. It's kind of saying that I want to. And I think what a lot of Villa fans, and you watched the show last year, that I was big on the sort of like the three centre halves that just play, and I just preferred it, and I still prefer it now. So so that's my team. So we've sort of had a little bit of a go at it. We've sort of rounded off with a bit of transfer stuff on areas that we think we should look at and look to improve on. We may as well mention him while you're here. The rumour of Felix is still there. What's your percentage of him signing for Villa? Where has it wavered a bit? Are you confident?
Yeah, it's probably wavering a bit, to be fair. I was pretty confident. I always thought it'd be one of them that just drags on and drags on. But yeah, as it does drag on, I find myself wavering a bit. But yeah, I do think it'll happen. I think they want him. I think he's the choice, and if they don't get him, I think they might even think we're actually okay. Player-wise, but yeah.
I mean, on Twitter at the minute, we're now getting to the phase where there's an account that's tracking flights, and there's a flight today that's from Portugal to Birmingham, sort of like an uncharted flight, and it's like we're now edging towards that stage. So, I always find it funny when we get to this sort of point, and like people are being spotted at the Belfry and stuff. It does make me laugh, to be fair. But yeah, I think I'm about 60% that he'll sign. I think 40. I'm just not really sure. So yeah,
I think it comes down to finances. I think that's what's holding it up. I think Atletico Madrid are probably valuing him more than what we value him at. To be honest. I see some of the numbers coming out from their side, and it's like 60 million and these kind of things. Whereas he was once a high potential player, but that's we're not. He's 24, 25, is he now? We're not paying for potential anymore. So it's about what is he right now, and he's a good player, probably 30, 40 million. I think probably just waiting it out to see, because they've spent a lot of money. See if they can get the price down, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's exciting anyway. So cheers for coming on, mate. You'll be in and around up the Villa a lot this season, so really looking forward to it. So cheers everyone for watching. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.